I'm Jeff Rona. I am a composer for film, television, and video games. Also a solo artist. I put out albums.
I'm Brandon Saliga. I'm Jeff's studio manager, head engineer. I mix all of his music, and I am mainly our head Atmos engineer now.
I started off actually working in the record business as a synthesizer programmer, drum machine programmer, sampling guy, working with amazing record producers, worked with David Foster, worked with Al Luton, worked with Malcolm Cecil, who produced the Stevie Wonder albums, and mostly worked with Maurice White of Earth, Wind and Fire. So I had this start in the pop music world and learned so much. And then I pivoted into film and TV because I had met a number of film composers, amongst them Hans Zimmer, who was really my main start into film. We're in my studio here in Topanga Canyon, alongside this room, which is my writing room, and it's also a recording space. Right behind the studio here was a little building, like a cabin, and it was exactly the right size for us to turn it into an Atmos mixing room. I think part of music production has been about creating very engaging experiences. You know, music went from mono to stereo more than a half a century ago. Since then, musicians and record producers have looked at ways to make music more engaging, more encompassing. The envelope has really been pushed on how to make music feel immersive, how to make people feel that they are in the music. Great sound engineers have taken advantage of being able to create a spatial environment that surrounds an audience in a way that creates a heightened emotion of the story. You had to know how many speakers you were dealing with, and then you would pan different things, different elements of the sound into those speakers. Atmos creates virtual speakers, and the technology between the hardware and software allows sounds to be moved in a way that if you have more speakers, or fewer speakers, the end result is amazingly similar.
Such a big part of Atmos is having all of the elements be defined in certain places in the room, instead of having a full surround experience where wherever you move the speakers to, the things coming out of those speakers are going to change where it's going to feel like it's in a different place of the room. But with Atmos, wherever you put it in one room is the exact place it's going to be in every Atmos room that it plays in, no matter what.
I think kind of the genius of Dolby and Atmos is that there's intelligence. There's actually computational power that takes into account the environment and compensates for things and creates a sense of distance, because Dolby actually will process sound to make it sound further away and not just quieter.
With surround, you would typically have one channel for every speaker. So if you're in a 5:1 surround room, you are mixing to 5 channels of audio, and that's it. So everything that you are mixing has to sum down to those 5 channels. But with Atmos, you have all of these object tracks that are all of these individual instruments or sound effects that honestly make mixing so much easier, because instead of worrying about how these sounds interact within your summed down bus, you have an infinite amount of possibilities of where these things can be in the room, and they aren't interacting with other pieces of music from a busing perspective. They are independent of each other.
We definitely wanted speakers that we knew that we had some familiarity with, and I've used Mackie Speakers on various projects in different rooms. These speakers kind of nail a really interesting sweet spot, being that they're extremely high quality reference speakers.
When we were looking for Atmos speakers, we toured different rooms, listening to how different speakers sounded. Going back and forth between a couple brands, Mackie just always stuck out. Mackie is so flat, it's so transparent.
We didn't couch it in, well, you know, if we don't use brand X, people are going to kind of look down at that. We just decided, because of our limited space and wanting a smaller footprint, which was important, but a full range, full fidelity speaker, and because I've had Mackie speakers off and on in my studio over the years, we decided let's give it a try. And the sound has been remarkable. Everybody who comes to the studio is blown away. One of the first things that Brandon did was to calibrate the room to the Dolby spec, but also to just get the speakers sounding very flat. And it was kind of a shocking surprise.
We ran a tuning software, getting the room all together, and the speakers already fit so well in the room that all of the tuning that needed to be done was pretty minimal. Aside from the point of it fitting in our room really well and sounding really good in our room, they just sounded amazing in general.
Down the road from us, there is a no-holds-barred, one of the most incredible Atmos rooms in the city. I brought them over here. We brought them for criticism, for advice. You know, how can we tweak anything about the system, the distances, the layout, the angles? Because I was really hoping, I really wanted them to say, here's what you need to do to make it better. And they just said, this room sounds unbelievable. So, oddly disappointing at the same time. How gratifying to know that you can build a phenomenal Atmos space on a budget and with relatively tight constraints. Here we are in our Atmos room. We are surrounded by 4 speakers overhead, 7 speakers at ear level, and then a couple of woofers. It's all a matched set of speakers from Mackie. These are the HR624mk2s. The speakers at ear level form a near perfect ring around the listener/mixer. And then the overheads are basically a second ring so that you're creating this dome of sound that envelops you and you're in the center of this sphere of sound and music.
It's a great time to get into Atmos too, just because of how early it still is in the music side of things. It's been in post-production for a while, but it's still very early days for the music side of Atmos. So getting into it as a young producer is a great idea. I'm finding just so much excitement mixing Atmos for music.
We're at a place in the music industry right now where Atmos has become a thing of value. Artists are really catching on to the creativity inside of Atmos, and we've been having a blast. We could not be happier with the sound of our room. And at the end of the day, all that matters is how good does the music sound and how well does it translate when it leaves the room. This room, it delivers 100% of the Atmos experience. In a small footprint, it's a small space, but it's adequate, and it shows what you can do with a modest space, with a limited budget, and you want the sound to be impeccable.